Stay tuned for urban legends to ghostly tales of the paranormal, because now it's time for
Message on the Wall.
The following message on the wall was suggested by Peggy Stevens, a show host on Sepia Radio and part of the Dreagus production team, as Message on the Wall presents Eerie Coincidences. Coincidences happen all the time, even to the point of shaping world events, to, of course, the downright weird and eerie. Our first strange coincidence involves twins, which studies have shown, even when separated at birth, twins often share the same preferences, dressing similarly, having the same hairstyle, similar jobs, and even marrying someone with the same first name. But as in this case, it becomes a little more eerie when they die on the same day. It was in 2002 in Rare, North Finland, that one of the 70-year-old twin brothers was riding his bicycle in a snowstorm when he was hit by a lorry or truck and killed. And although it is a busy road, a police officer stated that they didn't have accidents every day. But on this particular day, there was two, as around 2 hours later, the second twin was cycling along the same stretch of road, quite unaware that his brother was dead, when around a mile from his brother's accident, he was also hit by a lorry and killed. Now, how spooky is that? Our second eerie coincidence took place in a suburb of Birmingham in England. That was at one time a small village named Erdington that, like so many villages, are expanding to become more a town. It was on May the 26th, a Whit Monday, that two young women aged 20 years old went to a friend's house where they changed into a new set of clothes to go to a Whit dance. It was later that these two young women were found murdered, having been raped and then strangled. This was certainly a tragedy as well as an eerie coincidence, as the first girl, Mary Ashford, was found in a flooded sandpit shortly after she disappeared in 1817, while the second girl, Barbara Forrest, was found around 300 yards away from where Mary had been left, her murder taking place in 1975. And the coincidences don't end there. Just a few days before she was murdered, Mary told her friend's mother that she had bad feelings of the week to come, but couldn't explain why, while over 158 years later, Barbara told someone she worked with that she felt it was going to be her unlucky month. Apart from Whit Monday falling on the same date in both years, Mary and Barbara, who are said to have bore a striking resemblance to one another, also shared the same birth date. Neither murderer of the girls was found, or at least not in the eyes of the law courts. At the Whit dance, Mary had spent most of the evening with Abraham Thornton, and indeed was seen to leave with him. Thornton was arrested and charged with killing Mary, where at his trial he claimed that when he had last seen her, she was very much alive. The jury believed him and he was acquitted. As for Barbara, police arrested Michael Thornton, who was a work colleague at the children's home where he and Barbara worked. With little or no evidence that Thornton was involved, the judge directed the jury to return a verdict of not guilty, which they did, and so setting him free. And so, should those in Erdington be more wary when a Whit Monday falls on the same date in the future? And looking at eerie coincidences, there are plenty in the movie industry. There are movies, in hindsight, that appear to predict future events with an eerie accuracy. Or is it just an eerie coincidence? Take, for example, the case of Bruce Lee. Some think his death was due to a family curse that also took his son, Brandon. Bruce Lee was 32 years old when he died in 1973. It was while doing some dubbing work at the studio for Enter the Dragon that he collapsed and was rushed to the Hong Kong Baptist Hospital. Being diagnosed with a cerebral edema, doctors worked to reduce the swelling on his brain, but to little effect. Bruce Lee's death was ruled death by misadventure. At the time, he was working on a movie called Game of Death that was eventually released 5 years after Bruce Lee had departed this earth. Feeling they had enough footage, including Bruce Lee's actual funeral, actors stood in for Lee to complete the film. But was the film about an actor who was accidentally shot while making a movie within the movie a prediction or just a coincidence? When Bruce Lee died, he left behind an 8-year-old son who became actor Brandon Lee. Just under 20 years later, 4 months short of his father's death, Brandon Lee died on the set of The Crow when a blank cartridge was shot at him, only for a fatal real bullet to be in the gun. Brandon Lee died as the character had in his father's last film, an actor who was shot by accident. Brandon Lee's stunt double completed the scene and The Crow was released the following year. And even fantasy can get it eerily accurate, as with the case of comic books artist John Byrne, who in 1977 penned a fight with Spider-Man and the Wasp battling it out against villain Equinox, where a rampage through New York leaves the city in darkness with a mass of looting and the police trying to restore some form of order. Unfortunately, the comic came out the day after New York suffered a blackout that resulted in widespread looting, leaving 500 police officers injured. It was also John Byrne that supplied the story and drawings for Wonder Woman's demise, and there in the comic book is the fictional page of the Daily Planet newspaper with the headline, "A World Without Wonder Woman, Diana, Princess of the Mescara, Struck Down." 3 days after the comic's release, the real Princess Diana was killed in Paris in a car crash. John Byrne even got DC Comics in a panic at another story where aliens attacked not only Metropolis, but Byrne included real places around the world, including the White House, the Sydney Opera House in Australia, and, yes, an eerily destroyed Twin Towers. And even more eerily, the comic went on sale the day after the Twin Towers were attacked. John Byrne even claimed that he had penned a story where Superman saved NASA's space shuttle. As being the first female non-astronaut to go into space, Lois Lane was aboard to cover the story. This was not unlike the real Challenger, where the crew included a female non-astronaut who was taking part in the Teacher in Space program. And as most of us know, Krista McAuliffe died in the disaster just minutes after takeoff. Byrne claims that with not having sent his story off to be published, he was able to change it from a space shuttle to an experimental airplane. And there I will leave you to ponder on your own coincidences. You have been listening to Message on the Wall, brought to you in association with Paranormal Parodies. You can find Paranormal Parodies at paranormal-parodies.com.